chic. Freak out. Oh, freak out. You freak, c'est chic. Freak out. Have you heard about the new dance craze? Listen to us, I'm sure you'll be amazed. Big fun to be had by everyone. It's up to you, surely can be done. Young and old are doing it, I'm told. Just one try, and you too will be sold. It's called a freak, they're doing it night and day. Allow us, we'll show you the way. Aw, freak out. You freak, c'est chic. Freak out. All that pressure got you down. Has your head spinning all around.
We are live over downtown Minneapolis where, yes, that is a protester in a Viking costume marching down the street doing the techno Viking dance. 15 ICE agents are on his heels, but look at this. He's pulling away.
You know, what's so remarkable is we have the third largest reserve of oil in the world. We have all these other resources, and we have a federal government that has deliberately passed laws and policies to keep our oil and gas in the ground, holding back prosperity, depriving our children and grandchildren of a prosperous and happy future, increasing the cost of living. It's just spectacular. Why would any thinking people that have a choice, as Albertans will have in October when they go to vote in the referendum, not choose to seek prosperity and greater freedoms for their kids and their grandkids, their community, their neighbors?
Oh, Joe, listen, I remember those clothes in the 70s. Antonella's in the chat room. She goes, woo, woo, the 70s. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. What a good show. Listen, it's all out there. So as I used to say all the time at the front line with Joe and Joe, they're piling up a big ribeye dinner. We got the ribeye itself talking about Trump and tariffs and the Supreme Court. But then we got the baked potato and we got the cream spinach and we got the cream corn. Susan Rice basically said what every communist revolutionary always has in their heart. When we gain power, we're going to kill you. She didn't say it like that. Oh, we're going to play that clip. And again, they're showing their hand, Joe. It's all out in the open now. Macron said freedom of speech is bullshit. I don't curse on the show. I'm only quoting Emmanuel Macron. The mayor who was handpicked to destroy the city of Chicago is going to let an institution after 103 years, like the Chicago Bears, leave. And because it's by design, and we're going to talk about that too. We're certainly going to talk about Canada and some of the stuff. I guess, Joe, they're bringing in Chinese military, all right, or some such thing up in Canada. Hey, by the way, as this is going live, did Canada and the United States play hockey?
Yeah, US won, dude. One goal.
US won.
One goal.
Now, nobody out there at the front line with Joe and Joe could get mad at Joe and I because the US won the gold. I'm assuming, Joe, they won the gold.
Yes, they did.
Shows you how behind the times I am. I don't even know that Canada's playing the United States.
Yeah, it was on like early in the morning. I was getting bagels this morning, Eastern time. The game was on in the bagel shop.
Hockey's one of the only sports in the Olympics that's worth watching. You know, I don't watch it generally.
A big one. You don't watch curling?
I never thought it was a sport. No offense to the curling people. No offense to the curling people. Guy's got a broom. He's sweeping the ice.
I never understood that one. That's like, to me, like a drunken fraternity game, like curling. Like
it's like, I bet you can't do this.
Yeah, exactly.
And the kid who just had 2 cases of beer says, "Give me that broom.
Give me the broom,
bro. Get out of the way. Move that thing down the ice." In the meantime, he slips on the ice and cracks his head. I got to say this just to put a finer point. The one thing I never got is they're shooting and they're skiing. But who decided to come up with the idea?
No, it's another drunken, crazy person. Dude.
Another drunken guy who says, "I'm going to ski and I'm going to pull out my gun.
I'm going to ski with a gun on my back, and then I'm going to shoot the gun and then continue to ski." That's just another drunken man. That sport was created at like 2 a.m. after they just ate some Waffle House.
Yeah, sounds like somebody
Waffle House in Canada. I don't think. What's the big one up there? It's after some crazy, what's it called? Canadian hockey player who owns like a chain restaurant that basically screwed everybody during the COVID crisis. What the hell's his name? It's
I'm
like
not.
a guy's name. I can't believe I can't think of it. Let me
Somebody in
find
the chat room's got to tell us. Is that where they serve poutine?
No, though they say they serve poutine everywhere in Canada, but this
That's true.
place. Let me see. I'm looking it up. What the hell?
Somebody's going to.
I can't believe I can't find
Yeah,
it.
Carabini's in the chat room, by the way. He said you guys heard about Mar-a-Lago today.
Yeah, pretty crazy, dude. That's his third
So
time.
what happened? Let's start with that. What happened?
Well, basically, like at 1:30 in the morning, some dude gets into like the inner compound of Mar-a-Lago. He has a gallon of gasoline and a shotgun. So the Secret Service see him. So they tell him to stop. He puts down the gasoline and he points the shotgun at them and they kill him.
Again, a wasted life over what? Killing a guy who's managing the destruction of the United States of America brilliantly. I don't care what conservatives say anymore, and I don't care what Trumpers say anymore. He's the opposite of what I voted for. Now he's showing me that he doesn't give a crap, and that goes beyond abortion. That goes way beyond jacking up the military budget, $500 billion, all the things he wants to do. Did not give us a balanced budget. I can't wait to do my taxes to see that I'm going to get no difference between last year and this year. Trump's a disappointment, okay? So I don't know what these people are such in a tizzy about. I really don't, okay? He just got slapped down by the Supreme Court. This is worth talking about.
Therefore, effective immediately, all national security tariffs under Section 232 and existing Section 301 tariffs, they're existing, they're there, remain in place, fully in place, and in full force and effect. Today, I will sign an order to impose a 10% global tariff under Section 122 over and above our normal tariffs already being charged. And we're also initiating several Section 301 and other investigations to protect our country from unfair trading practices of other countries and companies. Thank you for your attention.
So Scott Jennings on CNN made a very good point. The next time somebody says that the Supreme Court is a wholly owned subsidiary of Donald Trump or something thereabouts, okay, I'm going to just point to this. This court hasn't given Trump everything he wanted, not even close. They did things that I don't even know that, let's say, for argument's sake, he had in his sights, like the Chevron deference and things like that. Things that really undid some really dangerous precedents in the past. This Supreme Court's taken it upon itself to do it. Didn't get any direction from Trump. On this, correct me if I'm wrong, Joe, on this, the court struck down Trump's tariffs, okay, not the ones he just spoke of, the ones that were in place. And Gorsuch, and this is the double-edged sword, and this is what I'm going to throw over to you. Number one, they went against the president. Number two, I think he anticipated this because he just came out with that, and he's doing it under a different laws.
Yeah,
okay,
it's different
and
set of
different
laws.
rules. And Gorsuch didn't go against Trump. Gorsuch said to the Congress, "You're not doing your job." Like, he challenged them. He wasn't going against Trump as much as he was going against Congress, saying, "You're not doing your job." Anyway, I'll throw it over to you.
Well, ultimately, it sounded to me, and again, I'm not a lawyer, but it sounded to me like the tariff was basically connected to a law that they deemed unconstitutional. That's kind of how it seemed to me. But then he just basically attached it to another law, and he's continuing to levy the tariff. So it's like a net zero gain. But to your point, it does go to show that they're not like Trump robots. It was a 6-3 vote. And, you know, Amy Coney Barrett, who he nominated, voted against it. And so did Gorsuch, voted against it. It was just Kavanaugh, Alito, and Clarence Thomas. The quote of the week, though, was Clarence Thomas when asked by the press, "Are you going to retire under Trump?" He says, "I'll retire when I do my job as poorly as you do." So I thought that was the quote of the week. That's the highlight of this particular net sum game that I kind of saw. And ultimately, like I said, but people see what they want to see, Joe. I mean, you see the commentators, like the next time that Trump does win something in the Supreme Court, they'll say the same thing, that they're just, you know, They're all political. They're just doing what they're told. People, the human mind is incredible, to be truthful with you, Joe. I marvel at it sometimes, how irrational and inconsistent.
No, I agree with you on that. Because let me go here. This is again, this and we're gonna, it speaks to this. We're gonna play Susan Rice in a little while. What's going on with the SAVE Act? We are up against an enemy who will not take one single finger off or loosen its grip that it has on power over the American people. That's what this comes down to. I want the tariffs, and I want the tariffs because they say, well, it costs you more money when you go and buy that product. Then I won't buy that product. I won't buy that product. Okay, how about that? I have a choice to buy a Chinese product or a European, any country in Europe or Africa or anywhere else where there's a tariff imposed. I could buy that product. I could shop American. That's the whole point. But the point is, and that's American, by the way. The whole point is that I have a choice. I don't have to spend that tax. I don't have to pay that tax if I don't buy that product. I have a choice in the market. That's the whole purpose of a tariff, to try to, number one, have other countries have their prices where our prices are by the use of a tariff. And number two, it gives me a choice. I get a choice whether I want to buy a product or not. So this idea that it costs me more money only for a product that I actually want, that I think might be better coming from overseas, I have to pay a little bit more. Stop with this idea. Hey, listen, do I prefer that? Do I have a choice? Or my income tax, where I have no choice, Joe?
Well, again, it's what people are fed through the mainstream media. Case in point, this morning I bought bagels. There's a sign in the window of the bagel place that said, due to inflation, prices have been raised, plus the tariffs. How are the tariffs? I mean, I don't buy the ingredients for bagels, so maybe they have something there. I don't know. How are tariffs affecting the cost of bagels?
Well, that's a business owner, I think, that thinks his customers are stupid.
Well, no, but here's the thing. That is what is being told to them through the media. And people believe it. You see, this is one of the three-pronged problems in America. One, our education system is very poor, and people don't know, just to use one example, the dangers of cultural communism, the dangers of socialism, the dangers of secular humanism. It wasn't taught to them. They're not taught to critically think. Second, the mainstream media is the enemy of the American people, and it's pure propaganda from Fox News to MSNBC. And third, the breakdown of the family. Tons of wounded people, tons of people through divorce who are basically, they have their backs up against the wall financially. And why is the family so fractured? Because God's not in the center of marriage. You fix those three things, America gets fixed. And here's the thing. No one's budging an inch to do it. No one. No. And that's the solution. That's the solution to Europe's problems. That's the solution to Canada's problems. It's so simple. No one's budging an inch to do it.
But you're making one mistake. Understandably, you're making one mistake. You're assuming that everything you just said is not being imposed on people by design.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah. But this is, again, they don't even see that.
Right. There's people that are, I know what you're saying.
They don't even see that. I saw something on X. There was a billionaire. I don't know who it was off the top of the guy's name. Never even heard of him. But people who usually make $1 billion are pretty shrewd. You don't have to like them. They're smart. People don't just make $1 billion. And this is what he said in the interview. He said, and it's so true. He goes, people are living in the matrix and they don't even realize it. That's most people, Joe. They just walk around like zombies. They eat what's given to them. The slop that the culture like basically dishes up. They buy into all of it. Hook, line, and sinker. Their life is a disaster as a result of it, and they accept that as the norm. And there you have it. Right. I mean, like, to your point, you made a point about tariffs. Just buy out. Just choose not to. Right. And to be honest with you, your life will improve exponentially. But that is not what people do. They buy in. And as a result, there are consequences to that. And that's what we're reaping. And
Oh,
to
yeah.
be honest with you, it's not going to go away from a political perspective. It simply isn't.
Probably going to get worse.
Before it gets better, it's going to get infinitely worse. We're going to
I
get
don't think I
Mussolini
quite
for
frankly.
real, Joe. We are going to get Mussolini for real.
Well,
Just
listen,
like
we're gonna play Susan Rice in a little while, and you bet your ass theirs is the politics of vengeance, and you're gonna be shocked when you hear that. But here's the thing, Joe. You mentioned the three prongs of our problems, but then that obviously ripples through other areas like our elections.
Partisan cooperation and a string of
Okay, Mitch. Anything else you want to say, or should we just go back to your office? Do you want to say anything else to the press? Go ahead, John. I'll take a break. Let's go back to you.
Go ahead, John.
dude.
Now it's an absolute shame that he's being allowed, just like they did with Feinstein, just like the Democrats did with Feinstein. Okay, old as dirt, not coherent, moments like that. That's the guy that refuses, according to the headline, refused to schedule a vote on the SAVE Act. That's the guy that did it. He can't even speak. He can't even speak.
Dude, how do we tolerate this as a people? First of all, it's elder abuse.
Well,
like
you and I don't. You and I, let's
but
be
I'm just
clear.
saying, like, as a whole, how does the American people look at that and tolerate it? It is a Saturday Night Live skip, but it's real. That's number
It's real.
one. Number two, it's elder abuse. How does his wife allow those men to take advantage of her husband like that? The same thing, my wife was saying that the whole time when Joe Biden was the president. How did his wife permit that? A man that was clearly not with it. It's basically you're using him, and it's elder abuse. Third point, this particular bill is the litmus test for America, and I'm going to tell you why. Any person that opposes it, it's not political. It's pure common sense. It is pure common sense. Mendani in New York is basically subcontracting people to help with the snow removal. He's requiring 5 forms of identification to remove snow in New York City. And you're going to look me in the face and tell me you do not have to show ID to vote and or get rid of mail-in ballots because there's no reason to have them anymore because there is no more COVID. Right. You're going to tell me that you're not for that. Why? Whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. The reason being is you are afraid to hear the voice of the people because you are afraid they will vote you out. You are afraid that they will have too much power and you're giving them power back. That is what this is all about.
Do you know what they're thinking when they're standing on a stage, Joe, in a debate, an incumbent congressman or an incumbent senator? You know what they're thinking about while they're being peppered with questions and pretending that they're being substantive and answering the other person's points or yelling at each other or whatever. The only thing they're thinking about is, I got to waste my friggin' time here. I need to be with the donors. I got to get some cash.
No question about that, Joe. But this is, again, can't people connect that? Like, this is not about Trump, because if this does not pass, I could just speak for me. I take no election seriously from this point forward.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Not a one.
And that's why I'm going to, and by the way, that's why I'm going to stay home. If this country's going down, Joe, I'm not going to be complicit and put my finger on that button for either one of these godforsaken parties. It's
absolutely, like, this is just to secure the elections. It's common sense. And here's a fourth point. If you, as a body of representation for us, Congress and Senate, cannot pass something that over 80% of America wants, 71% of the Democrats want it, and over 90% Republican percentage of people want it. If you can't pass something that is a layup, that again speaks something to me. Connect the dots. They clearly do not want the people to have a voice, because this is a way to manipulate the elections. And moving forward, America and voting should mean nothing to you. It's just like the professional wrestling that we watched when we were kids, Joe. It's pure, unadulterated theater. And any person that gets upset about an election or is concerned about election, you're not paying attention.
Well, listen, but I do believe that social media and a lot of different people out there are having an effect, a real effect. I think people are opening their eyes, but opening your eyes and having election integrity go hand in hand. That when the country starts to shift, because their consciousness is being raised to understand these things and what these people are doing, whether they're Republican or Democrat, then they're going to tend to vote a certain way or vote for certain people. That's why and by the way, the SAVE Act is just the start. You have to have public financing of campaigns. You have to have the SAVE Act. Term limits. That's the only way. That's the only way. And listen, like you said, power is not, they're not going to give it back. You got to take it. You have to do something. We have to do something to elect people that are going to
But also, like, so they prop up McConnell because he's not going to run again. He's basically 195 years old. Ultimately, where's Thune? Like, I didn't like that choice from the start. I knew he was a dog. I did from the start.
I believe you.
He is an absolute he's nothing more than a cog in the machine. He always was. And ultimately, where are you? Why do you even, dude, how could you stand behind that spectacle with a serious face and a suit on and pretend that it's real? How can you, how?
Because like the guy that I mentioned who's on a stage with his debate opponent, Thune's not thinking about Mitch McConnell's well-being. He's only thinking about the fact that he's got to go make a phone call and go raise some more money, because that's all they do. Tulsi Gabbard pointed this out. She says that's all you do all day is spend time with donors. That's it. That's all Thune is thinking about. He's thinking about his own power. All right. So, I got rid of the gum, pal. I got rid of the gum because somebody in the chat room's got a problem with me chewing gum. Anyway, so the military, Joe, I think, is coming to Canada.
And finally, we are creating a new category for skilled military recruits to attract highly skilled foreign military applicants. Eligible recruits with a job offer from the Canadian Armed Forces, including doctors, nurses, pilots, can be invited to apply for permanent residence. They will be subject to the same security and all military requirements. This new category will support our government's commitment to strengthen our armed forces, to defend our sovereignty, and to keep Canadians safe. This category and other priority categories supports Canada's defense industrial strategy, which Prime Minister Carney announced yesterday, by adding a range of workers critical to support our sovereignty and security.
Don't they have enough workers in Canada? Aren't there enough people that are unemployed in Canada that they have to bring in workers? And what's the point? Joe, you follow Canada more than I do. What's going on with the military? Why are you bringing in military people?
It's mercenaries, and to be honest with you, the crux of that story is they're looking to China to help them. And what I would say is this: do you actually think? Let's be objective for a moment to our Canadian viewers. Do you actually think the United States is going to tolerate that? Do you actually think that they're going to tolerate? Look at what the United States has done to Cuba over the past 60 years, 55 years, whatever it is. I mean, do you actually think that the United States is going to tolerate America's hat, so to speak, the country that we share a border with, allowing Chinese nationals to infiltrate their army? And we're not going to do anything about it?
They're not even infiltrating. They're being invited in.
But this is my point.
According to her.
Carney is living a delusional life. His Trump derangement syndrome has gone to his brain. Do you not think that the consequences for that will be so severe? Any American president, no matter who the president is, because the foreign policy is not governed by the American president. I got news for you, people. That is the deep state that runs that, the State Department, the CIA. So it doesn't matter who the president is. They either do it overtly or covertly like Obama did. Do you actually think that the American military and the American State Department and the CIA is going to is basically go along with that? I mean, this guy has done so much harm to Canada. So much harm to Canada. It's absurd. It's actually sad, to be honest with you, to see how, and it should be a lesson. It's another lesson for the world, which will be ignored, as Venezuela was ignored, as so many other countries. Within a short period of time, a decade, Canada went from a G7 nation to not even getting invited to like the G20, the G7.
They ain't even in the top 20. I was just going to say.
I think they're 22, the GDP of the world right now. So this is
they got
my
more
point.
oil than God, and they're doing this.
It's so like it's just another lesson if for people who have eyes to see, who study history, to watch a country get destroyed, the quality of life, the middle class disappearing, the amount of homeless people, the amount of people who are eating at food banks. It's unbelievable. And his insanity continues. This is a crazy move, which will backfire, if you tell me. If you ask me. It's going to backfire like nobody's business, because America will never tolerate China infiltrating the Canadian army.
No,
never.
Listen, I hear you. I mean, like you said, we need more sane voices out there.
600,000 people in 5 years is like adding half the city of Calgary or Edmonton in 5 years. Although sustainable immigration has always been an important part of our provincial growth model, throwing the doors wide open to anyone and everyone across the globe has flooded our classrooms, emergency rooms, and social support systems with far too many people, far too quickly. As just one example, our student population has skyrocketed by more than 80,000 students in just the last 4 years, and more than 140,000 students now having English as their additional language. Is it any wonder that our teachers and students are struggling so much with classroom complexity and crowding?
Now, real quick, compare that to this guy.
The campaign has put forward the essential role of public ownership to double down on the things that make Canada, Canada, not just our healthcare system, investing in the care economy where more than 3 million people, mostly women, work in long-term care, in childcare, in healthcare, and education, a public option for groceries, cell phones, internet connection, a public bank through Canada Post and postal banking. These are measures emphasizing the responsibility of the government to step up and govern and use our public resources in the public interest. Not everybody on this stage is willing to go there, but that's the only way that Canada can build a Trump-proof economy.
What did he just say?
Pure communism.
That's what I was going to say. He's talking about that's not governing, sir. That's government ownership of the means of production. That is not the same as governing. I don't want you to manufacture cell phones. Why? So you can let me not curse. So you can put a chip in it. So you can maybe hear my conversation. You think I trust you?
Or to filter it, to filter what you could check.
To filter what I could see. Oh, it's cheap and you can have this luxury and it's not expensive, but you can't go on Joe Rogan. And you can't go on Tucker Carlson. And dare I say, you can't listen to the front line with Joe and Joe. You can't listen to any of that stuff. But you'll be able to call your mom. Okay? No. Public option for groceries. Do you understand the shortages? Do you understand basic economics? Unless they plan to kill everybody or enslave people or torture them into subservience. Okay? The bottom line is this. What do you think happens when you impose these measures, sir? Scarcity. That's what happens. The shelves go empty. That's what happens. People go hungry, you idiot. And that's what he is, idiot. I don't understand. Like I said, some of these things, Joe, I understand one person sitting across from me, if they're a Democrat and I'm a Republican, and they might want to raise taxes on people who make more money. And I could sit there and say, that's not an irrational position. It's rational, but I disagree with it. But I can explain my position. They can explain theirs. It's a rational discussion. How do you reason with these people?
Well, you can't. He's an opportunist, Joe, and he sees a void and he's filling it.
Just like Mamdani. Like Mamdani.
Bingo. He is an opportunist. And frankly, in the process, if he was elected, he would get rich and everyone else would get poorer. And again, that's just history repeating itself over and over and over. When will people learn and connect the dots? There is not the answer, what that man is saying. And as far as Danielle Smith talking about unfettered migration into any country, that is the playbook. And the playbook was written because of Brexit, because the UK allowed the people to voice their opinion through a vote, a legitimate vote, and they wanted out of the EU. And they could never let that happen again. So instead of taking away the vote, they masquerade the vote with a Trojan horse. They bring in new people and give them stuff. And in the process, we vote, but we're basically buying the vote for people who are so thankful to come in, and they steal your country from you. That's the playbook, and it's being used across Europe. It's being used in Canada, and they're trying to do that here, and that's why they won't pass the America Save Act. And that includes Republicans, because they are not interested in giving voice to the American people.
The Democrats want to keep going further left. If you had the SAVE Act, here's the way I see it. The Democrats want to keep going further left, and they want to know that their elections are rigged because they have all these foreigners that are going to vote for them. So we know what they want to do. Republicans don't want to go full America first, in my opinion. That's why they don't want to pass the SAVE Act, because if you had the SAVE Act, then there's integrity in the elections, okay? What we're going to tend to do is vote people out that, for me, are not going to put other nations first, other interests first. They're going to put our interests first. Guess what? Ted Cruz will be on the hot seat then.
But that's why they're not. That's exactly why they won't.
And
vote
John Thune also.
Joe, that's why they're giving power. Trump is trying through the SAVE Act to give power back to people, to basically legitimize the vote, to put controls, basic controls, common sense controls. This isn't a political discussion. It's common sense. And they don't want it. Notice the people want it, but they don't. So who is their constituency? Again, let's connect some dots. It's not the people. No. You see, this is where I don't understand the human mind here. I can't understand the human mind here. How can't you see this, America? That you're not the constituency, the donor class is. And the donor class is not interested in giving power back to the American people. They're not. They're trying to usher in a modern day feudalism. That's what globalism is, people. Eliminate the middle class. You will own nothing. 50-year mortgages. You lease everything. You rent everything, and you pay interest on everything. That is feudalism. You are nothing more than a serf, and that is what the elite class wants. Right. They don't want to empower you. They sure as heck don't want you to know the truth through unfiltered news, and they sure as heck don't want the vote to be real. And that's what we should be getting from this, but we're not. We're just think it's another, it's just Trump. I'm not voting for that. He's Trump. They're disempowering you. Right. And that's going to continue no matter who the president is, no matter who the senator is.
And I like to tell some of these people who vote for the left for abortion and support of transgenderism and everything else, I always say, listen, when my belly's empty and your belly's empty, they're not going to give a shit about about your view of abortion, or I supported you on these things. No, you starve too, sweetheart. You're going to starve too. What do you think? They care about you? They enslaved you. Joe and Joe have been telling you this for 6 freaking years now. They're enslaving you by convincing you that the only thing that should matter to you is sexual liberation, abortion, and all, gay marriage, and all of that stuff. They're enslaving you. So my point, Joe, is when the hammer comes down, listen, all those people that voted for this guy we're about to play, guess what? You're going to be hungry too. You're going to be hungry too.
If we do not go down the first path, the city will be forced down a second, more harmful path. Faced with no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes. We would also be forced to raid our reserves. To balance the budget as required by law, our preliminary budget takes the only path within our control, the second path. The options of the second path are the options of last resort.
Oh, it's getting spicy out here. This is not politics. This is a high-stakes power play. Mayor Mamdani said if Governor Hochul don't tax the rich, he'll raise property taxes by 9.5%. But that's not all. He's also talking about tapping retiree funds and dipping into New York's rainy day fund. Let's think about that. Retiree fund, property taxes, emergency reserves, all on the table. Now, understand the chess move. Hochul has an election this year. So Mamdani frames it like this. If you don't tax the rich, you're protecting them. That sounds great in the headline, but here's the trap. If Hochul refuses and calls his bluff, then he has to follow through. Homeowners get hit for 9.5%, and when property taxes go up, rent goes up. There's no such thing as a landlord absorbing 9.5%. That bill gets passed down straight to working families. And let's talk about retiree funds. Those aren't slush funds. That's deferred compensation. That's people who already worked 20, 25, 30 years. Now you're balancing today's budget on tomorrow's security, and the rainy day fund, that's supposed to be for emergencies, recession, crisis, disaster. You don't drain it for political leverage. So ask yourself, is this fiscal responsibility or election year pressure tactic? Because if Hochul folds, he looks like the hero. But if she doesn't, and he executes this plan, he owns the consequences. You cannot talk affordability while making housing more expensive. You cannot say you're protecting workers while touching retiree money. And you cannot claim stability while draining emergency reserves. This is political chicken. And the people in the middle, homeowners in this city, renters in this city, working families in this city, retirees who already gave their body to the city. If this backfires, the political class will survive, but the middle class won't. Watch the game carefully because somebody's getting exposed, and it may not be who you think.
I want to sit down with that guy and have a cigar and a scotch. That's what I want to do. Oh, by the way, Joe, there's another example of that hate speech, that white supremacy. Well, that's a black working class guy in New York City. Yankee fan, by the way. All right. Black working class guy in New York City. He broke it down better than I could. Broke it down absolutely better than I could. It's exactly right. It's exactly what your landlord's going to what? Not raise your rent when his property tax goes up 10%? Are you smoking crack? I wanted to get that out there. Here's my point about Mamdani. He says, well, there's two paths. There's a third path, Mr. Mamdani. Cut spending. That's how you balance the budget. You cut spending.
A couple points. First of all, why is New York in the hole it's in? Because it doesn't have the budget to take care of the migrants. How do I know that? Because Mayor Adams said so. Mayor Adams, a Democrat, said so. When the border was open and everyone came into New York, he asked the Biden administration for funds. And Biden said no. And then they tried to take him down. That is all documented in interviews. I invite you to listen to it. So let's talk about why New York is underwater. It's because of that, because they were giving stuff away to buy votes. All part of the plan, which we just laid out, of why the border was open. Okay, let's also talk about why Hochul can't do this. Because corporations and billionaires support the state. Upstate New York has no industry. New York City supports the entire state. She said that before Mamdani was even elected. She cannot do that. She can't, because the state goes under. People who live in upstate New York, a lot of them are retirees, and frankly, it's a poor state. New York supports the whole state, the city, that is. So what happens if she did that? Corporations would leave. Palantir, case in point, just left Denver and went to Miami. Companies are leaving, going to Florida. They're going to Texas in droves. So are rich people. Rich people don't pay taxes. You think they're going to stay there and get raped? They're going to leave.
Right.
So what does he do? He raises the taxes on the middle class and he destroys the city. It's all part of the communist line, class warfare. That is what he's doing.
Right.
He's creating a class warfare model, and it's part of the larger narrative to sell it to the rest of the country. Meanwhile, the people that he courted to vote for him are nothing more than pawns.
Right.
He's used them from the start, and he's using them now as a bargaining chip. He cares nothing about you. Zero, nor does this machine that's trying to bring in secular humanism and a mild form of communism, socialism, slash democracy, whatever the heck they want to call it. You are nothing more than a pawn to them. To use the term of the communist, you are a useful idiot. This is not my term. This is the communist term. And they are using you. And you still, some of you in America, refuse to face reality and facts. That is what's going on. And you had a gentleman who's one of you, i.e. a working class man in New York City, who sees it clearly, which, by the way, gives me hope, Joe Pasillo. That video, when I saw that, gave me some hope that a normal person does see what's going on, because that's exactly what's going on.
No, I agree with you 1,000%. The interesting part is Mamdani's aide that sent out a video right after he got elected talked about how we have to rethink private property. And, you know, and everybody out there at the front line with Joe, and Joe knows where she was going with that. But see, here's the thing. They're not going to abolish private property. Right, Joe? In other words, like, and this is where that woman ties into what Mamdani wants to do. They're not going to abolish private property, but they're going to make owning something intolerable, financially intolerable.
Well, that's what happened in Canada. The middle class can't buy a house in Canada anymore. It's completely out of reach. That is what happens all over the world. Even in like very, very modern countries in Europe, middle class people don't own anything, dude.
No.
Go to like Italy. You go outside of Rome and take a train. When I was in Rome for my honeymoon, we went to Assisi, 2 hours outside. You get on the train, very quickly it gets very poor.
Very poor.
Very, very poor. Go to Madrid, go to Paris, go to Lisbon. Go to these are major cities in the world. Very quickly it gets very poor. They don't own. This is a unique situation in America where a working class person, or it was in Canada, it's gone, where a working person, a teacher, a cop, a truck driver, owned a house. That does not happen anywhere in the world. Mm-hmm. It happened here, and they're taking it from you.
Right. And they have no problem taking it from you. And you go from that. Now, here's my dilemma. Not really a dilemma, but I've said I'm at the front line with Joe and Joe before. I'm calling for the abolition of not only the personal income tax, but also property tax. There needs to be cases brought to the Supreme Court that would argue that those represent an unreasonable search and seizure by the government of your property. I don't know why, because to me, maybe I'm just stupid. Maybe I really am stupid. To me, that's a no-brainer. You're taking money out of my paycheck before I spend a dime on myself and my family. How is that not an unreasonable search and seizure? I buy a house, I'm already paying usurious compound interest, which is bad enough. I don't even own the friggin' thing. After 12 years of a 30-year mortgage, I still only have about 20 or 25% equity in the house, but I'm paying the full bill on the property tax, and the property tax recurs every single year. It's unreasonable seizure of my property. So that even if it's paid off, if I have a $500,000 house in Essex County, New Jersey, that's paid off, I'm still getting hosed for $15,000 a year. And if I don't pay the $15,000 a year, my house gets confiscated. The government can force me to sell it to pay the tax bill. So DeSantis, who we're about to play for you, is on the right track. But Governor DeSantis, it's not enough. It's a start, but it's not enough.
Property taxes now, if you can't get some other tax increase from the governor. What are you doing with property taxes? You're going to phase them out completely?
Well, first of all, Didn't he run on affordability? How is it more affordable to raise property taxes on working class people? I just don't understand that. So what we're working through, and we got to work with the Florida legislature, is phasing out the property tax for Florida residents and their primary, what we call a homesteaded property. And the way it works in Florida is that's about 1/3 of all the property tax revenue because, you know, these local governments are taxing investment properties, snowbirds, second, third homes, businesses, all those other things. And so the context of this is in 2019, local governments in Florida brought in $32 billion in property tax revenue. Now they're bringing in $60 billion. So if you go back to that 2019 level of spending, you give them population growth, you give them the inflation, even add a couple percent a year on top of that, you're not even close to $60 billion. So they're obviously getting a lot of this because property values have gone up. A lot of people moved to Florida, particularly during the COVID era, but people need relief. And what's happening, Joe, is you've got older people that have been in their home for a long time. They've had protection against valuation increases for 30 years. They're not downsizing because if they go from a 3 or 4 bedroom home to a condo, the tax basis is going to be so much higher that they can't afford it. So that hurts young people having access to be able to do it. So it needs to go on the ballot. It needs to get 60% of the vote, and we'll be working on that through the balance of the year.
Here's my problem with Governor DeSantis. And Joe, it's increasingly that if he was to run, I'm voting for him in the primary. He's about the only guy that's on the right track. But here's the problem. He just went through all that word salad, and I'm not disparaging him. I'm just describing the fact that he's got to string all these sentences together when it's very simple, Governor. No, it has nothing to do with whether it's my second or third home. It's my asset. Until I sell it, I don't pay any tax. And whether it's my second, third, fourth, or 10th home and it's in Florida. No, it's my property. Don't you understand? There's a philosophical difference here, Governor. You're talking about politics. We are talking about what's right and what's just. You cannot tax an asset that somebody owns until they sell it. If they sell it at a loss, they can write off the loss. If they sell it at a gain, they pay a gain on the additional value. But he's on the wrong path. I don't give a shit what the government is bringing in, Governor DeSantis. Well, if we do this with the property tax, right, that means the politicians. Why in none of this, Joe? I'm not going to go off on a rant. Why on none of this does anybody ever talk about spending cuts? Spending cuts. Sorry to get so angry. Stop with the fucking taxes already. I'm tired of it. Cut spending is what you have to do. Governor, President Trump, Thune, McConnell, cutting spending is what you have to do. Joe, I'm throwing it over to you. I'm sorry.
Joe, I'll be honest. What DeSantis has done in Florida has been unprecedented. In my lifetime, I have not seen a governor have as much success as him. Honestly, he has turned a state around in a way that everyone is moving to it. I just used another example. Palantir, massive, massive company, just moved to Miami. People are moving to Florida in droves. That's all because of his policies. Now let's connect some dots. Those who hate Republican ideas. I'm not a Republican, but let's talk about output. DeSantis is a Republican. He has ideas. He passed laws, and there's an output, and it has been successful. How can you dispute that? Why would you want to live in the squalor of LA, Chicago, or New York? People are leaving those places because they're not pro-business, they're not pro-family, and they're becoming uninhabitable. LA, unless you are a multi-millionaire and you live like the people in South America, quote unquote, behind walls, which is a very small percentage of the population, the city is not livable. It's not livable. The quality of life is horrible. Chicago is a war zone. People are getting killed left and right and have been for a long time, and they do nothing about it, nor do they care to. And New York is on the way. Talk to me in 2 years under this man, what New York City is going to be like. People are going to leave in droves. Now let's connect some dots. How can you not see the light and support policies that are improving people's lives? And here's another dot that you should see. All the virtue signaling with all these quote unquote liberal CEOs, what are they doing? They're moving their business out of liberal states and moving them to states like Florida.
Right.
Because they're agnostic. They don't care about the quote unquote virtues that they're basically putting forth and pretending like they do care. They care about the bottom line.
Right.
And they're leaving New York, California, Illinois, Massachusetts, and they're going to Georgia, North Carolina, Nevada, Florida, and Texas.
Well, I'll tell you,
can't America see? Joe, I don't understand. Am I just weird?
No.
I mean, like, what can't you see that's going on? I am weird, but that's okay.
You are weird. I'm a screamer, and I cursed a couple times today. You're a little bit weird, but see, that's why sometimes in these conversations, people are not addressing, at least in our politics, people are not addressing fundamental issues, the fundamental, we're talking here about the fundamental, keep it with America, the fundamental relationship between the government and, I want to say, the family, but let's call it the individual, the government and the individual, okay? The relationship, this is a philosophical question about what is the relationship? What is the nature of the relationship between the government, which you need, and the individual, which yearns to be free? You have Mamdani, we're going to play Brandon Johnson in a minute. You have these people who think what you earn belongs to the government, at least first and foremost. And by the way, I just want to throw out one thing before I keep going. Joe, when the middle class try to leave New York and the property tax gets increased, who are they going to sell their homes to? That's another nefarious part of this, because property values are going to go down. And then those people, Mamdani will be like, well, if you want to leave.
That's what happened in Toronto.
Right, but you're going to get $100,000 less for your home. Some people might say, you know what? I'll go out and get a second job for a few years. I'll make that $100,000 back. F you. That's what they'll say to Mamdani. But the people don't want to look at the relationship between the government and the individual. And people like Mamdani get away with what he gets away with. DeSantis is trying to bring, obviously, the emphasis back to the individual and the family, private property, more free enterprise. But DeSantis is not going far enough. The only institution in America that could get this right, aside from the church, that could get this right, is the United States Supreme Court. And you need to have someone who's got some stones, who's willing to put it all on the line, to file a lawsuit in New Jersey against the government of New Jersey. Okay. In the case of, let's say, Essex County, file a lawsuit that says, I'm not paying my property tax. It's unconstitutional under the 4th, 5th, and 15th Amendment, whichever one covers. Again, I'm not a constitutional scholar, haven't read it in a while. Unreasonable search and seizure. Somebody's got to do it with their income tax. A group of people, an association, some group of people have to come together. And I'm sure there's going to be willing lawyers like the American Center for Law and Justice, like the St. Thomas More Society, that would say, we'll take that case. We're going to craft a legal argument that the Supreme Court finally declare property tax and look, they adjudicated this when the income tax was first established. And FDR lost, by the way, on that. The income tax, Joe, was ruled against. I don't know if you remember that. Okay. And that's why FDR had to stack the court so he could get what he wanted. But the fact is that, in other words, the income tax was challenged at one point with a liberal Supreme Court. This is early 20th century. Now we have to challenge it with a conservative Supreme Court. And the personal income tax and the property tax, to me, are unreasonable search and seizure. They have to be done away with. But now, to your point, you're going to love this one. I mean, this guy's an idiot. Sorry, Joe, I'm being a little belligerent today. I'm sorry. You talked about businesses moving. Can you imagine the Chicago Bears moving across to Indiana?
Is my face straight? Okay. All right, keep a straight face here. The Bears belong in the city of Chicago. The Chicago Bears belong in the city of Chicago, right? And I've said repeatedly that the door is always open for conversations, Kevin Warren did call me yesterday. We didn't get a chance to connect, and I still firmly believe that their best position is in Chicago, and it's evidence. The evidence is clearly speaking for itself.
No, the evidence is clearly speaking for itself. They want to get away from you.
That's the truth.
You effing radical communist, what you are. He wants the Chicago. Listen, Joe, don't let him bullshit you. He wants the Chicago Bears to leave. He doesn't want to have the people, even the black people in Chicago who are Bears fans. He wants to take away everything from them. He says, I got a straight face. I got a straight face. Well, the line of communication is open. They don't want to talk to you, Mayor Johnson. They're leaving. You know what they want? They want you to leave them alone because they own a rather large piece of property in Chicago. And you know what they don't want? They don't want to get hosed on your taxes is what they don't want. And they will effing leave and they will go to Indiana. And you want to know what? If you think it can't happen, brother, I'm sure they're going to call me a racist for calling him brother. If you don't think it can happen, brother, the Baltimore Colts left Baltimore to go to
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis, okay? And then the Ravens had to go in there, and they probably got a deal, the Ravens, to go in there because they just lost one team. The Ravens would have said, well, you're going to do what we want you to do. But the Colts, they were an institution for how long? They left. Guess what? The Bears have been there for 103 years. They're going to go, bye-bye.
Business is agnostic when it comes to money.
Somebody tell him that, Joe.
No,
somebody tell him that.
And what people have to realize, unless, to be honest with you, you're 16. When you're 16, you think that like the world operates in a fair and just manner. It doesn't. Leverage is used and money is always the key driver. And if you don't make it favorable for a business the size of the Chicago Bears to stay, they're going to leave because they're not bound to the city. And we've just listed a litany of companies that have done that and more to come. You see, these policies are not pro-people. This is what is happening in Europe and what's happening in Canada. It's ideology. It's ideology over people. But businesses don't care because rich people are mobile and can move. Some people can, but a business needs a few lawyers and a few boxes, and they're out. And they don't even pack the boxes. They pay people to do that. Right. And they leave. And that is exactly what's going to happen. And Joe and I were talking before the show. What you're going to start to see in America are dead zones. Just like, say, Detroit. 100 years ago, Detroit was the city to live in America. And Detroit now is a slum. You're going to see dead zones. And people are going to start migrating. It's already happening because their quality of life is going further and further down. They can't live in these states because they're taxed to death. And not everyone makes a professional person's salary. That's not reality. Right. So what are they going to do? They're going to leave. Businesses, if they're not being taxed in accordance with it being favorable for them to stay in the state, they're going to leave too. Right. If Mandani got his way and taxed billionaires and all the corporations, they simply will leave.
Right.
And this is what a sixth grader can't understand because they actually think that the CEO will take the loss and help out the regular guy. He could care less.
Right.
So the politician has to walk the fine line, tax them just enough to keep them there, to keep the middle class there too, so everyone benefits. That's
you can't do that
because he's an ideologue.
If you want to take over everything,
because he's an ideologue and he doesn't care about people. And this is what, again, people have to step back, take off their political hat, and look around. You're going to tell me that, say, 20% of America would vote for Gavin Newsom after he destroyed the state of California?
Well, the media will convince you that he
No, but this is, I mean, Joe, is this again, getting back to the three-pronged problem of America, one of which is a lack of education. We're unable to critically think, and also the media. How can we vote? Joe, I mean, it boggles my mind.
Joe, the only education that people need at the end of the day, I agree with you on the education part, formal education, or at least some sort of basic civics education. The only education right now that's absolutely needed is the difference between right and wrong.
Well, that gets to the third problem. We don't know what's right and wrong anymore, and haven't for decades. America has twisted that completely.
Well, they've allowed it. Like when guys like that or guys like Mamdani, when they turn around and say, well, let's tax the rich. Nobody wants to hear an argument where you say, oh, by the way, do you know, Mr. or Mrs. 18, 19, 20-year-old college student, do you know that that's actually morally unjust to tax the rich more?
I have no problem. Here's the thing. I'll be truthful with you. I have no problem taxing the rich. I have a problem with the government using that money and spending it on stupid things. They can't even run the post office, Joe. You see, this is the thing. People who put that argument forth, what I would say to you is this. Yes, it is unjust, but that's not the way to fix it. The way to fix it is to have a moral people. Joe, I give 10% of my salary to the poor. Just so you know, I do. And so does my wife. I'm just telling you. Right. And we built our life accordingly. That's how you help people. I don't want the government to help people. And I do that on top of paying ridiculous taxes.
Right. No,
so I'm just saying that's how you form a moral people. But we're not a moral people.
In order to form a moral people or to help in that process, you need to be able to speak freely.
Because, I mean, free speech is a pure bullshit if nobody knows how you are guided through this so-called free speech, especially when it's to be guided from one hated speech to another hated speech. I just want to have a transparent road through these different speeches, and I want, by the way, to have a sort of public order. I want to avoid racist speech, hated speech, and so on. This is my. And the third one.
Bring it all on, Mr. Macron, because you don't understand the concept. First of all, I don't need to know how to navigate free speech. All I know how to do is open my mouth, which is a protected right under the United States Constitution. I don't give a shit about your definition of what's hate speech and this speech and that speech. I don't care. I don't care if you get a rabid communist who wants to build a page on X or YouTube or Facebook or some fascist, racist, and I don't care who it is. I'm not taking them down so that you can have more power over what people say and don't say. You're bullshit, Mr. Macron. You are bullshit, not free speech. Joe Rossinello.
What I want everyone to know, based upon what Joe just said and that clip, is this. Why is he saying that? That's the question we have to ask, because he knows that an informed public will not support his ideology. That is the underlying problem with free speech. Why, for decades, through the mass media, because of advertising dollars that refuse it. Do you know, just case in point, because of Bill Clinton, we are one of 2 countries in the world that permit pharmaceutical advertisement on television. There was a reason why that wasn't permitted before Bill Clinton, because the government and or the corporations will use those dollars to put forth a message to people to influence them, and it affects their health. And it may affect their health adversely. You ever see those commercials in America after they give some ridiculous like positive effect? They go through like a quick litany, and just in case if you take this drug, you'll get sick, and you'll right at the end.
Yep.
How does that also affect the FDA in approving those particular drugs when those companies are giving money in droves to both parties?
Right.
This is stuff that people should be thinking about. So why does he have a problem with free speech, particularly X, particularly an open forum? Because it impedes his platform. That's it. He could care less for any other reason, and they could call it anything they want to, and they did. They even made up a term called malinformation. Look that term up. That term was just created in the last.
Do you know what that means, by the way? That means that what you're saying might be true, but we're not going to let you say it anyway.
Well, this
That's
is
what
again, how does that comport with democracy? Another great question that we should be asking ourselves, irregardless of what party you're in. How does that comport with freedom if they're telling you you can't say certain things? How is that okay?
It's
The
not.
only people who are okay with that are the winners, meaning the elites that retain power. How, if you're not in that bucket, you could be for that? How can you convince yourself and twist this idea in your head because you hate Donald Trump? You do realize that eventually it will be used against you. How could you possibly not figure that out?
Right. Right. No, no. Well, listen, I honestly don't know how like he can actually get away with that. And again, it all has to do with the media. Let's move on a little bit because we got to get to this. Susan Rice just basically told you what the game plan is once they get power.
When it comes to the elites, the corporate interests, the law firms, the universities, the media, I agree with you, Preet. It is not. It's not going to end well for them. For those that decided that it was, that they would act in their perceived very narrow self-interest, which I would underscore is very short-term self-interest, and take a knee to Trump. I think they're now starting to realize, wait a minute, this is not popular. Trump is not popular. What he is doing, whether on the economy and affordability or on immigration now, is not popular. And that there is likely to be a swing in the other direction. And they are going to be caught with more than their pants down. They're going to be held accountable by those who come in opposition to Trump and win at the ballot box. And I can tell you, Preet, as I talk to leaders in Washington, leaders in our party, leaders in the states, if these corporations think that the Democrats, when they come back in power, are going to, play by the old rules and say, oh, never mind, we'll forgive you for all the people you fired, all the policies and principles you've violated, all, the laws you've skirted. I think they've got another thing coming because, just like when Trump thought, okay, I'll redistrict and the Democrats won't have the guts to play hardball. They're going to be surprised. Democrats have had a belly full, and we're not going to play by, the old set of rules when these guys are playing by a very different set of rules. We're going to play by the law, but we're not going to violate the law.
Let me stop it there. She's not going to play by the law. What you
I know.
see
She
there,
almost said that. She almost slipped. We're not going to play by the rules. She almost
right.
said
They're
it.
not going to play by the rules. Let me tell you something. They're not. But first of all, Democrats never play by the rules. See, I'd like to tell Susan Rice if I saw her today, I had a belly full of asshole Barack Obama for 8 years and people like you. So my belly's full of your nonsense too, Miss Rice. Okay. But what kind of threat is that? Remember when the communists came into power in China during the Cultural Revolution? Okay. What'd they do? She mentioned the universities. They took all the professors, all the educated people. Joe, they marched them up and down the street with dunce caps on. That's documented. That's what they did. Mocked them in public. That's what she's talking about. She's talking about using the federal government. In other words, if conservatives don't get their head out of their butts and do something about these people and pass the SAVE Act so people like that don't get in power again. Joe, this is an example. She is a vicious Marxist revolutionary. That's what Susan Rice is. She's not a learned woman. She's not a heartfelt woman. She's not a thoughtful woman. She is a vicious communist revolutionary who is not going to be tolerant of anybody who goes against her. Forget about supporting Donald Trump. That has nothing to do with it. What a lot of people don't do is they don't support people like her. They certainly don't support Barack Obama. What is she going to do to the 20% of black men that voted for Donald Trump? What is she going to do to those guys? She could put those people in prison? Those guys? She is a vicious, dangerous woman, and people need to see that.
Ultimately, that is a threat, and Trump called her on it. Trump it came out today, actually, on Truth Social, was posted on X. He's calling for Netflix to fire her or there will be consequences. You see,
Fire her.
yes,
Fire her.
yes, that was posted today. We'll see if they comply. My guess is they will fire her because, to be honest with you, because they don't care. They care
Well, she
about.
just threatened people, Joe.
But this is my point. This is where we're at, people. America right now, if you ask me, what is going to happen is this. The ping pong ball is going to continue to flip. We're going to go from one more radical person to the next. You talked about Barack Obama. Barack Obama created Donald Trump. Because Barack Obama was Barack Obama, you got Donald Trump, who came down that escalator in 2016. And then Joe Biden comes along. And that is why you have Donald Trump again. So what's going to happen? I don't think they're going to win the next cycle, to be honest with you. I think it's either going to be J.D. Vance or Ron DeSantis. I don't think America will vote for a Gavin Newsom or a Kamala Harris or AOC or a Pete Buttigieg. They don't have anybody. But eventually somebody is going to surface, and they will fool the American people as Barack Obama did and as Joe Biden, who was nothing more than a Trojan horse, Uncle Joe, middle of the road Joe, sneak him in and then go far left. That was the game plan, and it worked for 4 years, but America was onto it quick, and they threw him out. The ping pong ball is going to keep bouncing until a crisis happens, and whoever is in power during that crisis is going to take advantage of it, just like Bush took advantage of 9/11 and created the Patriot Act and took away your privacy, America. I hope you realize that. That was slipped in to the Patriot Act. They could look at anything without a warrant. That was because of the Patriot Act. Well, there is going to be a crisis, whether it is manufactured or it's organic. And then you're going to get Mussolini. Trump isn't Mussolini. He's coming. Let's look at history. That's what Napoleon did after the French Revolution. That is what Putin did after Russia collapsed and there was chaos for 20 years. That is what Franco did. That is what Pinochet did. And that is what the president of El Salvador just did. He was elected and he arrested 70,000 people. Yeah, 70,000 people within the first 6 months.
Right.
Why? To keep order. That is history, and that is what's going to happen here. And I'm not the only person saying it. If you start getting past Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, a lot of scholars and intellectuals are saying this. And I'm not one of them.
It's too much turmoil, Joe. The government has its tentacles in everything. It's so difficult to undo this web. And I'm saying web because that's what it is. It's very, very, very intricate. They are in all areas. Tim Gordon, Catholic commentator that's out there, said he was on our show. He goes, the thing about the left is they could have 99% of the room and they'll say to themselves, well, how come we don't have that last foot? And they go and get that too. They want it all. Why can't people understand that? I'm smart enough, if you think, I'm smart enough to know that I can't have everything I want politically. I know that.
Well, okay? We'll never have that as Catholics.
Here's the thing. I don't expect it either. I don't expect I'm going to get everything I want. Okay. But what I want is at the very least some effing sanity in this country, and we don't have any.
Well, Joe, you're right. And that's why Mussolini is going to come. And you're right, because eventually that's what they're trying to do to create chaos in the cities. Not basically when criminals get picked up by the police, they don't try them, they put them out. Mindani's talking about cutting 5,000 more police officers. De Blasio cut the police budget by $1 billion.
Right.
They're trying to manufacture chaos, which basically will make people say, here's my power. And I've even heard people say this. I just want to live my life. Here's my power. Take it. Just make sure everything's okay. They're never going to give it back. You see, that is what's going to happen. And it's a toss-up who's going to be the Mussolini, whether it will be someone on the left or someone on the right. But that is the person who will bring order through a totalitarian action. That is what Putin did. He brought the oligarchs to heel. He took down the organized criminals who were running the country.
Yeah, but the people were in favor of that, though.
And that is what will happen here, Joe Pasillo.
Because I'm in favor of that. I'm in favor of
but
order.
we don't know where it's gonna land. It may be the left that does it.
And listen, and if that's the case,
I'm just being honest. You see, that's the scary part. It may be the left that does it, or it may be the right, but that's the danger. And I've heard intellectuals who I don't agree with, like Cornel West, who just was on CNN. He said that to that whole roundtable that's chaired by that Abby Johnson girl. He basically was like
Abby Phillips.
Abby Phillips. He was basically like, we're going to lose the democracy. And they all were silent. No one said a word because they're, I think, smart enough to know what he's saying is right.
Right.
We're going to lose the republic, and you're going to get the strong man that's going to bring the chaos to heel. And it's not Trump.
This should not be shocking.
They're like, Trump's a fascist. You don't know what a fascist is. I got news for you. If Trump was a fascist and you called him a fascist, that would be the last thing you would say.
That's right.
Because a true fascist would have you killed. That's a fascist.
The thing about what you said, though, is that we're already, this shouldn't shock anybody. When people say like democracy will be lost, our republic will be lost, we're already lost. In other words, I love the line that Gordon Gekko tells Bud Fox in the movie Wall Street when Michael Douglas looks at Charlie Sheen and says, "Come on, buddy. You're not naive enough to think we're living in a democracy now, do you?" How true is that? How true is it?
Well,
they won't pass the SAVE Act, Joe.
80% of the country. Perfect example. Another
Wait, real quick. I'm sorry, Jojo.
No,
I'm sorry. Obamacare had 70% disapproval. They went against the will of the American people. They passed Obamacare. The SAVE Act has 80% approval of the American people, and the Republicans won't do a damn thing about it. Who's the problem here? The Scorpion AOCs of the world, or the Republicans?
Another thing we're about to go to war with Iran. Why? That war was bought and paid for by Jewish lobbyists and Jewish supporters of Israel. That's a fact. And here's the thing. 80% of America doesn't want it. That's why Donald Trump won. American first, no wars. Right. And yet we're about to go to war with Iran because Israel asked us to, and people like the Adelsons or whatever gave Trump $100 million along with many others. And that's reality. Why else would we be doing it?
Well, you know what you just said, of course, is going to get construed as anti-Semitic. Because
no, that's not anti-Semitic. It's just reality.
I know, Joe. I know it's not. But the point is that, like, look, this is one of the problems that happened with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was being pitched that he had to stay along the pro-Israel front, the pro-Israel line. He got himself in trouble within the couple months before he was shot dead in public. Okay, he said this. He goes, it looks like all the radical groups in America are all being funded, all the neo-Marxist groups, quasi-Marxist groups, all being funded by Jews. He was questioning his support of the state of Israel. That's right. Miriam Adelson, Paul Singer. People have been saying this, and they're called anti-Semitic. What you just said is absolutely true. They want war. But if you say that, of course, you're anti-Zionist, and of course, as we know from Karen
what benefit does that give to the average person who can't pay his rent? You see, this is where, again, case in point, the majority of America is not interested in going to war with Iran, yet we're about to. Does our voice matter? Is another question that people have to ask. Are we connecting these dots based upon the actions of our nation, juxtaposed to the percentage of people who are against these actions across the aisle? The SAVE Act is 70%. It's across the aisle. It's 80%. It's across the aisle. 70 Democrats, 90 Republicans. No one wants to go to war with Iran. You used Obamacare. People didn't want it, yet we have it or had it. So this is my point. This is why the approval rating of the Congress, no matter who the president is, never goes above 35%. because they don't represent us.
No, no.
They don't represent us.
I wish people would get it through their head. No, so listen, we're coming up on the end, and it's been a long show today. We want to thank everybody. We're going to leave you with a clip, an important clip that we're going to leave you with for you to think about. A little snippet from AOC, and then a follow-up to that from Bishop Barron, which you think you're going to be interested in. Thanks once again for joining us here at the Front Line with Joe and Joe. Help us out that wherever you're watching this video, share, like, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Really help us get out to a wider audience, particularly if you like our conversations. We hope you do, or else why would you be here? So Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, thanking you once again. We'll see you next week. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Marco Rubio's speech was a pure appeal to Western culture. My favorite part was when he said that American cowboys came from Spain. It's also important to note how thin that foundation is.
Everybody, it's Bishop Barron. You know, just last week, Marco Rubio gave a talk that I thought was really good in Munich. He was talking about the shared culture of Europe and America. He referenced Gothic cathedrals and Dante and Shakespeare and even the Beatles. His point was, we got to get beyond just our political differences and find our sources in the great culture that unites us. And then he took a further step that was very much in line with Pope Benedict XVI and Christopher Dawson, namely that culture is grounded in cult. At the root of all culture is something like religion. And so he wasn't afraid to reference the Christian faith as a key element in giving rise to the shared culture of Europe and America. So a really good speech, I thought. Well, then I think it was yesterday, I saw Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez answering him. And I was very struck by her answer. I thought it was very illuminating. She said, oh, you know, this appeal to culture, it's so thin because culture is ephemeral. It's always changing. And so we shouldn't pay attention to culture. We just pay attention to the material foundations in the class struggle. Well, all of that, everybody, is right out of the Marxist playbook. First of all, that Western culture, as Rubio invoked it, is thin. The culture that gave us all those great figures, that gave us the rule of law, that gave us respect for the rights of the individual, that gave us our democratic political system, that gave us the university system, that's thin. And your argument is, well, because cultures always change. Well, that's a banality. I mean, of course, cultures are alive, they change and evolve. Doesn't mean for a second we can't identify the key elements within a culture that gives it its character. But also this, to characterize culture as thin is a Marxist move. Marx said that culture is simply an epiphenomenal superstructure on top of the economic substructure. And don't be distracted, therefore, by the culture. That's just protecting the economics at bottom. Well, again, listen to her. Let's pay attention to the material conditions and to class struggle. Again, that's the Marxist playbook. What's worrying me, everybody, is the extent to which political leadership on the left in America is becoming, it's unapologetically Marxist. The mayor of New York City, you know, the warmth of collectivism. He's calling for the confiscation of private property, of seizing the means of production. All language right out of the Communist Manifesto. You know, might I encourage followers of, you know, Mayor Mamdani and AOC, talk to some of them. They're still alive, some of them. The people that fled Marxist tyranny in Europe. People laboring under it to this day in Cuba, North Korea, Venezuela, etc. And then this too. It concerns me not just as someone who follows politics, but as a bishop of the Catholic Church. Marx himself said the first critique is a critique of religion, and his political adepts followed him. The first thing that the Marxist tyrannies went after in most cases was religion. I'm getting a little concerned that in some of these leading figures in our own politics, a Marxist philosophy is taking hold. As a religious leader, this is concerning me quite a bit. Take a look, everybody. Attend to the language. In a way, they're telling us who they are and what they're for. And I think that should be very concerning to everybody. And God bless you.